Good evening. Welcome back once again. This week I have narrated some stories about stalking. As usual, please stay safe out there. You never know who you could run into. And with that being said, grab yourself a snack, sit back and relax, and hope that tonight will not be your last.
Hi everyone. I have been getting stalked by someone after a really bad thing happening. I was going through a bad breakup, and a few weeks after, he reached out to me on Facebook. I knew him on an acquaintance, and he said he was going somewhere an hour or so away to see his family. This place also happens to be somewhere I've never been, but had expressed interest to him before as wanting to go. He invited me since it was just a day trip, and I figured, why not? I trusted him. I don't have a good relationship with my biological dad, and to an extent I viewed this guy as a father figure. Not to mention, my life felt unreal, and I have felt as if I'm living outside of my body. Long story short, he tried to get me to do meth with him. I refused, and he ended up doing bad things. I'll put it that way. Then he became obsessed, and even though he knew I was upset and didn't want it, he asked if I loved him. I said, of course not, you're disgusting and I will never love you. After the trip, he reached out to me saying how he wants to get married, have kids, etc. All these delusions. It scared me. This man was in his 40s and I'm only 20. I blocked him on everything. He made an Instagram account messaging me, threatening that if I don't love him, he will mail indecent photos of me to my family, ex, workplace, etc. He claims he filmed the entire thing and I will leak it. He also said he would show up to my house, and I live with my parents. I was so scared I blocked him. Then a few days later, he used someone else's phone to message me. A short paragraph saying he had fun with me, and he's sorry he messed up, and that he will always be here for me, and that I'm a daughter to him. He also has 3 daughters in real life, and it made me so nauseous to hear that. I got so scared I didn't even reply and blocked the number. I have been carrying a knife and pepper spray on me at all times since. I had a workplace stalker 7 years ago, and he pursued me, but I thought he was flirting and gave him a chance. He was 14 years older than me, and I had just graduated college, so I had no life skills. I didn't really understand the signs of obsession and stalking because I was young and naive. He was the quiet, creepy guy with no friends. He didn't tell me about anything with his past. He never even smiled or laughed, but he was charming. He turned out to be an actual psychopath and a self-proclaimed ninja who targeted me and destroyed my life step by step. I was trusting and vulnerable and had terrible parents who taught me nothing about life. He admitted to this and we bonded over it. He infiltrated my life and he was with me all the time because he immediately wanted me to move in. He loved everything about me. He isolated me from friends and hobbies, and we did everything together. It felt so real. I was also so focused on my career. He became abusive and is the most manipulative person and pathological liar I've ever met. A total con man. He trained me to hate myself and focus on him, and would take me through this cycle of abuse over and over. My head was spinning. He always wanted to watch missing person shows. I started missing work because he was all up all night yelling at me, and it was definitely sleep deprivation. He was hot and cold. He loved everything about me and then started slowly picking me apart, and it got me so confused. I'm not stupid, but he had me under full control. He asked me to move to another state away from my family in a rural area. He was so nice when he did that sales pitch. It took 6 months to convince me, but he promised me the sun, the moon, and the stars. This was a complete trap. I paid $80,000 for the down payment, and we worked out how the loan would be paid back. Little did I know this man wasn't going to pay me back a penny. When we got to our new house, I knew right away that this is not what I signed up for. He yelled at me every day like a drill sergeant. I felt constantly monitored and watched. The abuse ramped up to an incredible level. My parents are narcissists and didn't believe me. They have always assumed I was the problem since I was a child. I began to lose my sanity. I knew something was off and I felt afraid, but I didn't know what. My parents always reassured me that I was fine and never validated me. I was trained not to trust my gut or reality. I immediately wanted to sell the house, but he wouldn't agree to sign. He kept me trapped in a mortgage for 1.5 years. I had no money for a lawyer. No one believed me, ever. Even though I had evidence he was sabotaging the sales. My family saw what was happening and just blamed my mental health issues because I always have to be the problem. I went to my mom's to escape the abuse and she started abusing me again like in childhood. Instead of listening to me and believing me, she called the cops for wellness checks. I went to the mental hospital 3 times and my parents told the doctors, "I don't know what's wrong with my daughter." I was begging for help at this point. The mental hospital didn't listen. There was obviously a reason I was losing my mind and it was all planned. The psychopath was still living in the house and I had to pay for it. My mom had me illegally arrested for DV charges and had me arrested. I lost my mind even more because she lied. She dragged me through the court for 4 months and my dad and sister came to court and didn't say a word to me. My dad knew my mom had gotten me falsely arrested. They kept the lies going. I was now being financially abused in one state by a psychopath who at this point had gotten me terminated from my job. My mom was abusing me in another state. Everyone around me gaslit me and it felt like a living nightmare. The truth was so obvious. In May, he finally agreed to sell the trap house. He told the realtor he wanted to destroy me. He already did. At this point, I was disabled with no money. My family still pretended like nothing was happening and treated me horribly at home. The house officially sells June 28th and I should get the money I invested back. Not one person confronted my stalker's psychopathic ex. I have severe PTSD and have been trying to get away since October of 2022. He tried to beat up my mom's boyfriend and almost wouldn't sign the papers still. He's a 45-year-old man and I'm 30 now. What a creep. Before he wanted revenge, he told me he felt bad that my parents didn't love me and it was the only empathy he ever showed. He called my mom psycho, which she is after calling the cops so much. I've lost everything being pursued by a creepy psychopath stalker, and he really is a ninja. He did this all sneakily and covertly. I was confused and terrified. My family punished me and he didn't get in trouble. The only one who went to any type of punishment was me. The psych ward gave me fake diagnoses because my parents left out all the stuff that was happening. What kind of stalker is he? Hey guys, hopefully this makes sense to most. It might be all over the place, but I'm still shaking from this experience. This guy that I'll name K and I had a long distance relationship for a couple of months, until I broke up with him. After we broke up, he would message me constantly about how he messed up and to give him another chance. Since he kept on harassing me, I changed numbers, but I could still see he was stalking me on my Call of Duty mobile profile, which I can see whenever he clicked on my profile. I'm used to seeing him do that, so it's not surprising, but as long as he wasn't talking to me, that was fine. He would do things to get my attention, like making TikTok accounts to try to talk to me, which later I deleted. He even started texting my family members to get my attention. Until today, I got a random message from this unknown number, and I stupidly decided to respond thinking I would know this person. This person claimed to know me and said they saw me go into a certain class, which was exactly what I did today, and they also knew which class I am in. They claimed to have found my number from my sister, and when I asked her, she said she would never give my number out to anyone, which I believe her because she knows what Kay has done and how he won't leave me alone. He claimed to be a certain person and even gave a name, but I don't know anyone of that name. I thought this was a sick joke from someone, so I even responded sarcastically to some messages. Until this person mentioned Kay's name, and then I knew this must be him. But that would mean he is watching me, and in my school. I am a 25-year-old non-binary person renting a 4-bedroom house. One of my roommates is my boyfriend, and the other is my best friend of 10 years. We will call her Tracy. We've been looking for a new roommate, and because of the way the situation turned out, we have determined that I am no longer allowed to be in charge of looking because I'm not judgmental enough and I'm known for ignoring red flags. I will start from the beginning, which is the house showing. So our new prospective roommate showed up for the house showing and introduced himself. He definitely seemed strange at first, but I wrote him off as him being eccentric. The main red flag was that at some point, he randomly said something to the effect of, "I will not bring meth into your house because I am not on meth. I hate drugs and I see them as a scourge on this entire country." I did not ask, so I was immediately weirded out, but my boyfriend and the roommate who was moving out also met the guy, and they both thought that, apart from that, he seemed normal. He didn't look like a stereotypical meth head. His skin was clear, and he was kind of chubby. We thought that maybe he thought I was the meth head, because I look a little scary. I have green hair, septum, 6 facial piercings. In addition, my roommate who was moving out turned out to be hiding a cat, which made the house stink like cat piss, which I have been told is what meth smells like. Also, the town this guy was coming from is known for meth and crack, and he seemed to be explicitly trying to get away from that town, so I thought that maybe he was afraid of ending up in a situation where he was living with drug addicts and was trying to suss us out that way. Giving him the benefit of the doubt was my first mistake. Tracy and I were both wigged out at the entire thing, but we were kind of desperate for a roommate, and after all, the people responding to my listing were either not great fits or were even sketchier than this guy. We let him move in. Skip to the move-in date. He proceeds to bring an old man to help move his stuff. He then makes the old man move all of his things by himself up the stairs while he sits there, including a refrigerator, by himself. New guy signs the lease. Immediately after signing the lease, he informs us that he did not introduce himself using his real name and proceeds to tell us his real name. This man was not transgender, so the only reason I can think of as to why he initially gave us a fake name is probably so he could avoid having us run a background check. After this, I had to go to work. Throughout my shift, Tracy sends me a message that this guy is weird, but her responses are vague and I didn't really find out what happened until I got home. Here is what she told me. The new guy goes to the bar after signing the lease and comes back after being kicked out before 9 p.m. The bar he went to is a biker bar that is notorious for being rowdy. It's hard to get kicked out there. You pretty much have to do something heinous, or you have to have been creeping on the woman there in order to get kicked. When he comes back, he's drunk and says, "The men there must have been intimidated by me." Sounds to me like he was creeping. Before this, I had told the new guy that our landlord is coming up the next day to fix some things in the house. When the new guy came home, Tracy reminded him that our landlord was coming the next day. He became extremely angry to the point that he was flailing his arms and she thought he was going to start breaking things. Tracy was so uncomfortable that she almost went to go wake up my boyfriend in the other room. Eventually, the new guy did calm down. There is a beanbag next to my couch, and Tracy is sitting on the beanbag with her legs slung over the armrest of the couch. At first, the new guy sat on the couch. He begins to read off poetry that he wrote for her to an entire hour and a half, all of which is literally just a streams of consciousness about how he wants all junkies to die. Afterwards, he starts telling her how beautiful she is over and over, and literally lays his head down between her legs. She's trying to ignore him, and he won't stop asking her if she fell asleep. Every time she moves away, he gets closer. Then he starts inviting her to his room for beer. Eventually, she just gets up and goes to her room at around 11 p.m. This man harassed her for 2 entire hours. I thought that was everything, but then she tells me that she sent the guy's picture to her mom, who sent this picture to everyone she knows because she's from the town he was previously living in. It turned out that he'd been stalking Tracy's aunt for an entire year, and that he's banned from the bar she works at because he goes there and threatens to kidnap her. She literally has to be escorted out not only by workers, but the customers escort her to her car sometimes. So we tell our landlord. Luckily, our lease hasn't been finalized yet, so he agreed to kick him out. I call my mom to come over, and Tracy calls her brother for backup, just in case things go south. Our landlord shows up and essentially tells him he needs to leave and doesn't let the new guy get a word in. The new guy starts getting agitated and aggressive, so we called the cops and several officers showed up. Told the guy he had no legal standing there. He introduced himself with us with a fake name, and he hadn't even been there for a full 24 hours and that he had to get out. The guy had to beg his sister to pick him up, and she was so unwilling to do it that she didn't agree until he offered to pay her $200. It's a 20-minute ride to where he was going. He left most of his stuff on our porch. When we went into his room, it smelled like cigarette smoke and there was an empty pack on the floor, including not 1 or 2, but 7 empty Dr. Pepper cans and garbage and crusty socks everywhere. This entire situation had me so stressed out that I didn't even notice that he had also left a pair of pissy shorts in the middle of the house's main hallway, and that was also the first thing you see when you walk into the house. They were there for the entire day. When he knew the landlord was coming, they were still sitting there when I left. I picked them up with a glove and put them on the porch for him to retrieve, but who knows when he will retrieve his things because he came back earlier, touched his things like he was going to take them, and then just immediately left. All I can say is, I am so relieved that we caught this before the lease was finalized because this easily could have turned into a situation where Tracy and I were being assaulted, or worse. I, 34 female, reside in an upstairs room that was my first room to myself as a child. I had to leave a bad situation and therefore ended up back at my childhood home. For reference, when our house was built, we were told that the field to our left would one day soon be a development. It was 2000 when we were told that, and it wasn't until 2022 that roads started being formed and foundations laid. I'd already had someone follow me home before when I was young, but I was in a different bedroom next door. My parents put in a free library that's right below my window and nighttime security lights that are very bright and turn on when you're within 20 feet of the side of my house my room is on. I'll admit, having an open field next to me so long made me accustomed to not closing the curtains when I change, because there was never anyone to watch. Now there is. For the past 2 weeks, the burglar lights next to my free library have been going off late at night. Because my one side of the curtain is open, I can use my vape. That's the only reason I noticed it at all. I didn't think too much of it at first. We lock all the doors and windows every night, and I'm on the second floor. I also always looked out to see if it was a car, someone walking their dog, or a deer, only to see nothing. To add, they put in a ton of streetlights around this area, so visibility is great. But it just kept happening. So last night, I did my usual and I saw the lights come on and out of my peripherals. I acted natural, giving full view of the window I was going to bed. It was about 3 a.m. Turning the TV off, closing the window and curtains, turning the lights out. Then I ducked down, peering through the curtains to the sidewalk below. I honestly thought I was going to pass out when, after a few minutes, maybe 5, someone comes out from the side of my house, all silhouette, dressed in black. They kept their back to me until the light turned off, but I swear I could still see them standing there, looking up well, like they could see me. I called the police, but while I was on the phone with the operator, I saw him run off. There wasn't much they could do, except they say they'd have a car drive around and look. My parents are asleep and I know I have to tell them tomorrow. This scares the crap out of me. If it hadn't been happening for weeks and was a solo incident, I probably would be fine about it. But the fact that the light had been going off without me seeing activity and what happened tonight makes me think this person has been watching me and watching my house. So I recently had a few encounters with a delivery guy. First was when he asked me my full name from my previous address, and then saying, "You moved, huh?" while smiling creepily. I thought he was just a delivery guy that was trying to do small talk, so I brushed him off. I'm living alone, so I thought I was just being overthinking by getting creeped out. Then I realized after I thought about it that he was my neighbor in my previous address. He struck up a conversation with me saying he knows one of my friends. I don't like talking to strangers, so I didn't talk with him long, but it stayed with me because I felt uncomfortable with him, like he felt he was dangerous. After that, I was going out and saw him again delivering to my neighbor, and I ignored him trying to walk by. He saw me and recognized me, even if I was wearing a mask, and asked the same question again. After that, since I don't go out much often, I don't see him as often. There was this one time he was standing in front of my neighbor's house, but I just walked by. And I saw him in my Facebook friend requests, and I just ignored him again. But I was obviously creeped out, so I told my friend, and he said he knew. At first my friend said she didn't know anyone with that name, but his last name made her recognize him as soon as a son of a family friend. They never talked. His family didn't know he was working as a delivery guy, and he was laid off because he became obsessed with his boss, which was older than his mom. I also lost my keys, so I asked my landlord for a replacement. I didn't think much of it until I got home to my door open. Obviously, I was cautious, but there was no one at my apartment, so I sighed in relief, thinking maybe I left it open. I am night shift, so sometimes my mind is all over the place. Now that I'm thinking about it, I overlooked a lot of things, and am now thinking of installing security in front of my apartment. I am still scared though, because he knows my address. My friend told me to report him to the police, but I'm too scared because they might just let him go and he'll take revenge on me. She also told me he might be doing drugs as told by his family since he is acting suspicious. The most I can do right now is change my locks and install a camera in front.